Our 1965 Mustang Fastback is among the first in a long line of classic Mustangs. In fact, it's highly sought after by collectors and restorers today. Join us as we install a performance dual exhaust system and take a trip to a cool salvage yard looking for rare parts. Welcome to Classic Car Restoration. I'm your host, Steve Magnante. When Lee Iacocca and the original designers of the Mustang sat down, they had no idea how successful it would be. After all, they were essentially reskinning Ford's popular compact Falcon. But on the very first day of sales, nearly 22,000 Mustangs were sold. Now, that was a major record, but by the end of the model year, nearly 1 million cars were sold, yet another Mustang record. In September of 1965, Ford moved from strength to strength and introduced the classic fastback Mustang 2+2. You see 2 people in the front and 2 people in the back. These became immediate classics, and in fact were also the launch pads for the Shelby GT350, the Mach 1, the Boss Series, and also those very few overhead cam Ford 27 cars that Ford drag raced in 1965 and 66. The notchback Mustang, nice. The fastback, best. I'm here at Memory Lane Collector Car Dismantlers in sunny Southern California. If you're doing a restoration on your car, you're going to need some parts. The beautiful thing about Memory Lane is on any given day, they have over 1,000 pre-1974 rust-free cars and trucks ready to yield those parts. Do they have Mustangs? Oh yes, they have Mustangs. Most salvage yards are divided into makes and even models to make it easier to search for cars and parts. Memory Lane has all kinds of different makes. This is the Ford section. Now, one thing about Memory Lane, unlike some other self-service yards, they don't really want you to bring tools in. They have guys who pull the parts for you. The reason is, in some cases, in the haste to get to a part, you might destroy some good parts on the way in. In the Ford section, we see an awful lot of Mustangs, but keep in mind, every Fairlane, every Falcon, has parts that we could use on our car. For instance, engines, transmissions, rear axles, leaf springs, coil springs, in some cases even windshields. So even though the Mustang that you need may not be here, the Fairlane or the Falcon could be a source of parts. The same holds true for the bigger Fords. Even Lincolns, in some cases, have parts that hot rodders can use in their Mustang hot rods. Now, I'm looking around in the Mustang section here, hoping to find a 2+2 fastback like our car. No dice. They're very rare, then as now. But the coupes like this car right here are actually quite common. Here's a 65, and even though the front of this car is stripped away, all the sheet metal is gone, if our Mustang had accident damage, we could totally use the front clip off this car right here. It's not hit, it's straight, there's no rust. So here's an example right here of something we could slice off, send back and use on our car if we needed it. Parts like this are hidden from plain view when the sheet metal's on the car, but when they're fully disassembled like this one, there it is right there, a good part, ripe for the picking. It's a sad thing to say, but this 1965 rust-free hardtop is going to be a pancake in about 30 days. There's only so much room to store the cars. Now, if this was a fastback, there's no way it would get this far down the chain toward the junkyard. But if we look a little closer at this car here, we go to the VIN, which is stamped here on the fender. The 5th digit is an A. This was a 289 two-barrel car, fairly special, but not special enough to save it from the crusher. If that was a K, it would be the 271 horsepower 289. And hardtop or fastback, there's no way this car would be in the junkyard. But sadly, this one, it'll be a pancake in 30 days. While it is true that almost every body part on a Mustang is available in reproduction, you can still get good deals in the salvage yard. Case in point, this trunk lid. You got to remember, there's a big difference between surface rust and structural rust. What we see on this one here is just surface blemishes. You could take a sander, get rid of all that stuff, prime this and paint it and be a good trunk lid. One thing also, a nice make it or break it detail on selecting a trunk lid, take a look at the trunk lock opening. This one here is smooth, it's flat, it's never been punched in. Fixing this area can get pretty expensive. This is a nice piece. One of the features that made the original Mustang so popular was the standard bucket seats. But after 40 years, in many cases, those seats are long gone. Now, on our Mustang, we still have them, but if we were looking for seats, here's a great candidate right here. When selecting a used seat, the thing to keep in mind is that you can get the seat cover and the foam in reproduction. So if it doesn't look good, that doesn't matter. But what you really care about is to make sure the seat frame isn't bent or that the hinges that allow the seat to articulate aren't damaged. This one here, it's straight, the hinge works cool, This would be a nice piece if we needed it. Used bumpers take a little bit of thought. The reason is you can get reproduction bumpers with brand new chrome for Mustangs for right around $100 a piece. They're not very expensive. So when I find a bumper like this, it's a 65 bumper, but it has a lot of rust, it's a little bit bent. It's not too terrible, but the truth is, by the time this was straightened, stripped, and chromed, I'd have more money in this bumper than a reproduction. If you need leaf springs for a Mustang, you can probably find them, since they're interchangeable with those from vintage Fairlanes and Falcons. So how much should you pay for these used parts? Well, generally speaking, from one yard to the next, the prices will vary. But on average, I'd say that you'd expect to pay about $100 for a good trunk lid. A quarter panel, depending how complete it is, could be as much as $250. Doors, about $100. That should include the windows and the regulators inside. Front fenders sometimes are a little more expensive. Why? Well, because crash damage is usually confined to the front half of the car. Therefore, there's more demand for these parts. So fenders could be as much as $200 a piece on particularly the collectible cars. Hoods, about $100 to $200. Grills and bumpers, that stuff can get very expensive. You can pay anywhere from $50 to $500 depending on the car. For more information about replacement part costs for a vintage Mustang, check out our website at DIYnetwork.com. I'll continue my trek through the salvage yard, and you won't believe what I find. I've also got some trade secrets for finding good parts in cars. When classic car restoration